Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with information on government's policies and initiatives. I'm your host, Theodore Henry. Today we'll be discussing the National Housing Trust Employer Arrears Amnesty. The amnesty has been in place for some time now, giving employers a relief to clear arrears on their employees' contribution and get back on track with payment of this contribution that goes towards assisting persons in their quest to own a home. Here to tell us more is Mr. Dameon McNally, Assistant General Manager of the NHT's Compliance Department. Mr. McNally, welcome to Get the Facts.
Thank you for having me.
Let's jump right into getting some facts. So everybody knows what an NHT contribution is. But what we don't know is why the employer's arrears program was necessary.
All right. Thanks for that question. Now, the National Housing Trust has the responsibility to ensure that employers deduct and remit contributions for their employees.
Right.
And there's a responsibility for the employer to pay contribution as well. 2% is paid by the employee and 3% by the employer, which is a percentage of your gross emoluments.
Right.
The payments are made monthly, which is filed with a monthly return, and then the annual returns are filed at the end of the year.
Right.
From time to time, we would realize that for one reason or the other, employers fall behind in their payments. And as you said in your opening remarks, the NHT recognized that over a period of time, there was a bit of a challenge, especially coming out of the COVID pandemic, where our MSMEs, our micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, went through a bit of challenge. Unfortunately, some did not survive. Most survived. And some of who survived, they had arrears. Now, when it is that you have arrears, it simply means that you were late with your contributions payments or you didn't pay it at all. So whether you're late or you didn't pay it at all, what automatically happens after the payment deadline have passed, you will accumulate interest and penalty.
For late, not just absent, late.
Late. So whenever you don't make the payment, and the interest and penalty is calculated at the rate of 20% per annum. So you can imagine what will happen to an account when it is that the payments are late consistently or there's no payment over a period of time.
Right.
So this amnesty program was geared toward those MSMEs and our charitable organization to help them to get back on track. And so one of the things that, the amnesty is designed is to relieve these targeted employers of the additional expenses of penalty and interest. Because penalties and interest are really an additional burden. So we wanted to relieve them of this burden. Right. And in so doing, you get them back on track, and then we can get our annual returns reconciled.
Right. And of course, the contributors get their benefit.
Precisely.
If
and that's an important point,
Yes.
Right. Because tell you what, it's the basic principle. Everyone should know by now that the NHT refund contributions. Contributions are refunded after 7 years, paid in the 8 years. And so if the employer falls behind in the remitting those contributions, if it is that we don't get those contributions, then we're not in a position to refund. Right.
Yeah. Okay, so I do have to ask though. So you mentioned the penalties and the interest. If the amnesty isn't taken up, if the monies are not cleared, what happens?
All right, so we have a set of interventions that we use for compliance. And a lot of time persons hear the word compliance, people think about the big stiffs being aggressive and all of that. But for us, we try to use moral suasion, education, let persons be aware of the importance of being compliant. And where that does not work, we may give you a payment reminder. And if that still does not work, we may, ask our attorneys to give you, write you a nice little letter indicating that these amounts are letter. Right.
Okay.
And if that does not work, because, beyond that, we try to reach out to say, enter into a payment agreement. If that does not work, then, sometimes we may have to take these matters to court.
Right. So there's
but we don't want to focus on that. And that's one of the reasons why we're having this amnesty, where it is that where we reached out to our employer to say that, listen, you have arrears, we are making it easier for you. We want to relieve you of the burden of paying the penalty and interest pay the principal amount.
Got it. Real quick question. You mentioned that there are a variety of reasons why employers might be in arrears.
Right.
So does that mean that anyone in arrears is eligible for this program?
No, this program is specifically geared towards MSMEs, or micro, small, medium-sized enterprise. And so these are basically employers that has up to 50 employees or sales turnover not exceeding $425 million annually, right? So you would have to meet both criteria, right? Again, up to 50 employees and no more than $425 million in annual sales turnover. And we also include our charitable organization, registered charitable organization. We also include them in the program. Because one of the things that we realized before the Amnesty is that we have a lot of charitable organizations which are not-for-profit entity. You know, they find themselves sometimes in a bit of difficulty.
Right.
And a lot of times they make the effort to pay off the principal, but they struggle with the interest and the penalties. And so, you know, from time to time, they would write to the National Housing Trust requesting a waiver of interest. And so what we did, we have this period of amnesty where persons, you know, who employers it is that, you know, that are within the category that can benefit can come in and get a waiver of interest. So this amnesty is not only designed for employers that have arrears currently, but also for employers that would have settled principal arrears and they would have the interest and the penalty on the books. Those persons can just apply and right away it's like an automatic situation.
Got it. That is interesting. All right, so let's do a case study. Or an example,
right.
I should say. So an employer is having trouble making the contributions. You mentioned a payment plan. Right. It sounded to me that it's not a one-size-fits-all.
No.
Right? So how do you work with an employer? They write to you and say, hey, listen,
all right.
Challenges.
All right. So, you know, an employer reach out to us to say that, listen, we do not have all the funds to settle everything all at once. And we reach out to them and, you know, we'll give them 6 months, 2 years, 1 year. However, one of the things that we are mindful of when it is that we are setting the repayment terms, that the arrears should be settled in time. So it is that the employees can get access to their contributions. Because what we don't want to enter into a payment arrangement. And when those payments are made, they are not made in time for us to go through the reconciliation process, that is matching the payment with the annual returns, that are the details of the employees, and there's not sufficient payments made as yet to reconcile annual returns so that an employee can access their refund.
I understand.
Right? But of importance, when we enter in a payment arrangement, once it is that an employee's name is on the annual return, that employee will not be disenfranchised in terms of accessing a housing benefit. Right? But when it comes to the refund, again, the basic principle, if we don't collect, we can't refund.
Can't pay out. Understood. All right, we're going to go to a break real quick. We thank you so much for watching. We're talking NHT and the Employers Amnesty. Please stay with us.
Keep your heart beating strong. Your health is your wealth. Practice healthy habits. 30 minutes a day keeps heart disease away. Choose life.
Welcome back to Get the Facts. We are discussing the NHT's Employer Arrears Amnesty Program. Still with us is Mr. Dameon McNally, Assistant General Manager of the NHT's Compliance Department. Sir McNally, now, there was an extension prior.
Yes.
Because the first deadline was March. Is that accurate?
Well, let me just, share some information with your viewers. And so when it is that the amnesty was implemented in June last year, there was 3 categories. So the first category of the program went up to September 30th, where if it is that you settled all arrears up to December 31st, 2023,
yes,
and filed all your annual returns, then if it is that you you would be able to access a waiver of 20% of your employer's contribution and 100% interest. Cool. That was a major one for us. The first time we were doing something like that was very major. Right? If you're not able to meet that deadline, we had a second category where if it is that you paid up all your principal arrears up to December 31st, 2023, right? Filed all your annual returns, then you will receive a 100% waiver of interest, right? That's 100% waiver of interest calculated on your any contribution outstanding for your employee's contributions and for the employer portion of the contributions.
No interest.
That went up to December 31st, 2024.
Right.
We had a third category, wherein if it is that you settled all your principal arrears up to December 31st, 2023, between January and March of this year, then you will receive a waiver of interest calculated on the employer's contribution.
Right.
What it therefore means that between January to March, you will be required to settle all principal amounts outstanding and the 40% interest calculated on the outstanding employees' contributions.
All right, I'm following.
Right.
I'm following.
So that went up until March 31st
2025,
right.
right. And then we extended.
And we had an extension, right.
Right.
So this extension goes up to May 31st, 2025. And it's bigger and it's more exciting because I'll tell you what. Right. This time around, we are offering 100% waiver of interest. Remember, recall that I said that the waiver of 100% interest went up to December.
Right.
Right. This time around, we are offering that again, 100% waiver of interest. And to add to that, we have included any arrears that you would have accumulated up until March of this year. Because you recall I said earlier that the requirement was that you have to settle all arrears up to December 31st, 2023. So that did not include any amounts that you would have owed. And yet your rule at the time would have rolled on. So what is happening now is that at that time when we launched the Amnesty program, it was more focused on settling arrears up to December 2023. But now that we are in 2025, with the extension, we have included any amounts that employers would have owed between January 1st, right, up to March 31st of this year.
Right.
And so what it therefore means, if by any chance any employers would have benefited from the waivers, and if by any means they would have accumulated any arrears between January 1st of 2024 up to now, they can still benefit from a waiver of any interest that would have been accumulated.
Same 100%, everything off.
100% off. No, I know persons listening would have benefited from the waiver, the 60% waiver of interest between January to March of this year. So recall that we said that if you applied between January to March of this year, you'd have to pay up all principal arrears up to December 31st, 2023, and you would have to pay the interest calculated on the employees' contributions.
Right.
But now, between the 1st of April to the 31st of May, we are offering 100% interest. So I know the question can be asked, what about me who would have paid that 40% interest? You will not be disenfranchised. Right? We are aware that you would have made those payments, and after the amnesty program would have been completed, a determination will be made as to how best it is that we can put those persons in an equitable positions to those, similar to those who have benefited from the 100% waiver of interest between April to May of this year.
Sir McNally, it sounds like I should not ask if there's any sort of extension beyond May coming. Sounds like I should have asked that question.
Well, it is not in my purview, but I highly doubt that there will be any extension beyond May 31st. One of the things that we recognize why it is that we had the extension, over the last 5 days in March, we realized that we got over almost 100%, almost 100 employers applied for the amnesty. You know what, we're a last minute person, whether we like to admit it or not.
Right.
So we realized that a lot of employers waited in until the last week. And even on the last day, that is March 31st, I had persons reaching out to me to say that, listen, they are in line to make payment at Tax Administration Jamaica, and the doors have been closed on them, and they're not able to benefit. And so with the number of persons that we saw expressing an interest in the program over the last 5 days in March, we decided that, that we would have a window where it is that those persons could benefit. In addition to that, another thing that we realized is that a lot of employers sought to obtain loans of, additional funding externally to settle their arrears up to December 31st last year, so they could benefit from the 100% waiver. But by the time it is that they were able to, get their loans approved by the external institution, right, the timeline had passed, right, and so they were not able to benefit from the 100% waiver of interest. To compound that, they were also now required to pay the 40% interest calculated on the outstanding employee's contribution. And for those that did not have additional cash flow because they borrowed a fixed sum, they borrowed this money, had the additional interest at the expense of borrowing that money, and was not able to capitalize on the program, the very purpose for which it is that they borrowed their money. So we took that, right. So we took that into consideration. I was saying it was those employers that you can still benefit, right? And you had persons reaching out to us. You had some micro business persons who said that they made all the effort to settle the principal arrears, but they just did not meet the December 31st deadline last year.
So you're giving them some reprieve,
right? As a matter of fact, one of my team members said that when one of their employers heard about it, the employer sent them a voice note praising the Lord, said this is a miracle.
All right. It sounds like the program has been pretty successful.
Yes, it has been successful. We wanted to see much more numbers, but the way how we look at it, it's a tremendous benefit for all of those who engage the program.
And definitely, the employee and the benefits that they are to receive, you're not seeking to punish, you're seeking to ensure compliance.
Right.
I get that sense from all the measures that you've mentioned so far. We are in the tail end, not quite the tail end of the amnesty period, but the tail end of the interview.
Right.
Sir McNally, any word you'd like to say directly to our audience?
Right. Thank you for that. So I want to use this opportunity to say to all our employers, our MSMEs and charitable organization, there is an extension, and I know that a number of you had reached out to us requesting an extension. That extension has been approved by the Board of the National Housing Trust. Don't delay. Do not wait until the last day in May. And additionally, if you have arrears up to March 31st, 2025, you can also get a waiver of the interest calculated on those arrears. Make use of this opportunity, right? The window closes at May 31st, 2025. So we encourage all employers. It's a wonderful program. Take advantage of it.
And I'll add to that, you can contact the National Housing Trust at 876-929-6500-9 for more information on the waivers and the amnesty program overall. Thank you so much, Sir McNally.
Thank you for having me.
You've given us a lot, and thank you for watching. We have been discussing the NHT Employers Arrears programs and how you can take advantage of this great opportunity to clear your outstanding contributions and become NHT compliant. This has been Get the Facts. Our guest has been Mr. Dameon McNally, Assistant General Manager of the NHT's Compliance Department. Until next time, I'm Theodore Henry. Thank you for watching, and take care.